wanted to say thank you guys so much for taking the time. Hope the apes enjoyed their weekend. We have Bitbot joining us today. This is a pretty exciting one, and in my opinion, just looking at where they're at in terms of their raise, their social engagement, almost 80,000 followers on their social. They're currently at stage 10 of 15 in their pre-sale raise. It's going to push them over the $2.5 million mark, which is pretty exciting. I know for us, pre-sales are definitely, something that we're a little bit more selective on. So the fact that, these guys booked in, I'm pretty excited to hear more about what they're building. Bitbot, as mentioned, is working towards launching their MVP into the spaces, which they're going to be their gem scanner. But what the concept is a self-custodial Telegram trading platform. So it's more than just a bot. And I'm sure that, the listeners of the AMA today are going to hear that throughout Andrew's presentation. But it's not just another Telegram trading bot where you just simply, drop a CA and snipe a contract. There's a lot of different features that these guys are planning to build out. And it truly is, when all's said and done, as I'm sure you're going to be able to hear through Andrew's presentation, they're really looking to build out a robust platform and ecosystem that allows users to optimize their trading results, not just, using some of the prompts, but also with the incorporation of AI. So very early on in the process here, but I can't lie, I've been impressed in terms of what they've done so far. Take the time, jump into their website. If you are looking to connect to a website or buy through the pre-sale, always recommended that if it's anything new, any website, doesn't matter what team it is, doesn't matter how long they've been around, always connect with a fresh wallet. So that's just one thing that we always say for a pre-sale that's on a third party. But yeah, in terms of the concept, really solid. They are looking to be a first mover on the Telegram side of things. So Andrew, happy to have you here, and I'll throw you the mic for your introduction.
Yeah, sure. So everyone, my name is Andrew. I'm the technical product advisor at Bitbot. I've been with the team for about several months now. I know we started our pre-sale early in January, about mid-January. A little bit intro on my background. I've been involved in the blockchain space since about 2017. I've kind of gotten deep into the technical components of how, different blockchain ecosystems work. And, I dabbled in a little mining, I messed around with a bit of the tokenomics side of things. And I kind of took all that momentum when I drove it towards becoming more of an advisory kind of person down the space as the ecosystem evolved over time. So I've worked with multiple projects in the past, and I'm working with Bitbot right now to kind of not only just, present, what we're building to the community, but also kind of give more of an advisory capacity kind of value offering there for them as they build out their project as well. So I'm here today to talk about the project. I know this is going to be a little informal way of doing things. It's not going to be a simple Q&A. So I'm basically going to talk about a few things when it comes to, what separates Bitbot from other trading bots that are out there right now. What do we have down the pipeline and what features we look to implement, and a few touches on, the future roadmap down the line.
Again, I know from a network support standpoint that you guys are going to be going live with Ethereum and Solana. Makes sense, two of the largest volume networks. Why don't you go through kind of walking us through where it started? Because as you mentioned, very competitive landscape. So what led the team to want to create a product within this, this sector of DeFi?
Yeah, so there's a lot of trading activity happening on both chains. We already know that. There are the trading bots out there, but there really hasn't been one that kind of addressed some of the security issues that have been going on today. As you know, there's a lot of scams that happen in this space. People get their wallets compromised, loss of funds based on certain contracts that they're interacting with, et cetera. Malicious websites, phishing attempts, all kinds of different things are out there. So, we wanted to create a product that ideally kind of prevented that, or reduce it to a very small capacity, decrease the risk essentially. So it's a non-custodial trading bot that's also powered by AI essentially. And it's not going to be a simple interface that you just can execute trades on certain decentralized exchanges, but there's an AI component that kind of acts as your personal assistant, where you can interact with using natural language to kind of execute trades, whether it's buying, selling, or get some market analytics or insights. So It's kind of like an all-in-one tool rather than a simplistic interface where you can just trade, like I said earlier. So we kind of wanted to build something that was a little bit more unique and has a little bit more robustness within it.
In terms of like what somebody's going to have to do to connect or deploy the actual bot, like what requirements would somebody need, or is there specific holding amounts of the token to gain access? Are you guys going to be deploying more of a free to use model, and then there's going to be the more premium or tiered benefits based
Yes.
on what your holding amounts are within the Bitbot ecosystem? Like that for me is what I'm really trying to figure out in terms of the early stages and the connection, because the easier you make it in that stage, obviously it kind of plays well from adoption and growing your user base early, in a higher rate or
Right.
speed.
So initially, what we want to do is we want to launch via Telegram mini apps. It's going to be an easy to use user interface. You can directly interact with a bot on there, and we'll announce that as we go along the road of getting this product ready for launch. Down the road, we want to make our own independent application that has its own separate UI with the UX that kind of caters towards what the community wants based on the feedback that we receive over the course of time as the product evolves. So just getting started in general is pretty much straightforward. Like you said, you kind of mentioned it earlier that, anytime you interact with anything new, you always want to start with a fresh wallet just for security reasons in general. Um, and all you have to do is really just, access the application through Telegram mini apps. And then you have, what requires a minimum holding amount, there really isn't any. The team hasn't really established a minimum holding amount. If anything, it's going to be 1 or 5 tokens. It's nothing substantial, but people can start trading based on the amount they want to allocate directly from there. And there's going to be a more simple to use user interface that kind of targets basic traders or basic users, and a more advanced UI that targets the more advanced traders as well. So that's going to be the initial launch phase of the product directly through Telegram. And getting started is going to be rather simple for users. There's really not much loops and bounds they have to hop through in order to start accessing the product and start actually trading on decentralized exchanges. Ideally, what we want to do is we want to make it as simple as possible to use. You can set your features, you can set your certain parameters for trading, etc., and then just let the bot do the work for you. The only thing you have to do is, sign signature requests, if anything, based on certain transactions you guys want to execute on certain decentralized exchanges.
And let's like go, you know what, you're setting me up for a perfect segue so far with, some of the responses you had. So it's been super easy first 10 minutes, from my side, Andrew. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. I wanted to go into like your mantra there, and like what the reason for creation of this product, from my research, at least, from reading through everything, going through your white paper, seeing the taglines or what it's related to. You guys seem to be building this out from the mentality of not your keys, not your crypto, and kind of alluded off of what, Elon and a number of other notable figures have mentioned when it talks about interacting with exchanges and the traditional route in this space. So I kind of want to go into a little bit more of I guess, a perception or a breakdown standpoint question with like how you guys identified this concept, and like how you feel what you're building at Bitbot fits that, like not your keys, not your crypto
Yeah.
mentality that you guys have kind of pushed through from a wording and messaging standpoint a lot in your website and your white paper.
Right. Yeah. So the way we do it is, typically when it comes to trading in general is, you interact with whatever pair you want and then you execute a trade. So there's no intermediary. It's just you as the input user, and then the trade is executed on the blockchain and the trade is complete. There's no, the security really comes down to just you maintaining, custody of your own private keys, as well as, ensuring that you're not interacting with any other malicious websites or whatever with that wallet specifically. What we did was we introduced a middleman, and that's NightSafe. They're basically the ones that are going to be propagating the transactions on behalf of Bitbot using their infrastructure. So they have a blockchain distribution network with a bunch of nodes set up around the world that allow us to secure trades, land on certain blocks, make sure, because it's a very competitive environment out there, and we want to make sure that, we are as competitive as other trading bots as well. However, we wanted to input that security component that the non-custodial portion is that interaction with the middleman. So if you as a user have, let's say, your MetaMask wallet, and you want to execute a trade, you're connecting that wallet to Bitbot, who's then connecting that wallet to NightSafe, which is a smart contract wallet, who's then executing that trade. There's no extra steps that a user has to go through. It's done automatically. So in the event that a user, let's say, interacts with a malicious contract address, NightSafe is going to be that first barrier that's going to kind of block that user from getting compromised on their actual custodial wallet side of things. So that kind of eliminates that connection point from user to exchange interaction that puts you kind of entirely at risk if you don't know what you're doing out there. And that's kind of why we wanted to create a product like this that kind of incorporated that middleman that acted as like a defensive barrier for users that may potentially get caught in a malicious environment, for example. Does that make sense?
And I know from going through like the website and stuff, a couple of the specific features or unique features that you guys have mentioned with regards to the tool is like the MEV protection and the anti-rug protection. So, you kind of touched on that. Like that's what, you were alluding to a little bit there. But I was hoping you could go into a little bit more detail just with regards to that, because especially like when it comes to other bots that exist in the space, like Maestro and these other larger players, there's been a couple of different issues that they've already had to deal with. One is, there's been a few exploits, so that's obviously something that is concerning. But the other kind of deals with the wallet addresses being discovered, because like you can kind of track with Maestro, and then I don't use it personally, but I've been told some people are getting front run and having issues with their buys actually going through using some of those tools based on the availability of the information and how people can manipulate it.
So
I don't
that's
know
what we want to,
but that's kind of what I wanted to touch on with the question, just to give it some context. That's all.
So there's two parts to this. Number one is we have something called a gem scanner. And what that does is basically it validates the authenticity and the genuineness of these tokens. There's three components of this scanner. There's a gem discovery channel, which basically does an aggregate of multiple data sources. It uses an aggregate of multiple data sources such as Deck Screener, Bird Eye, social feeds from Twitter, now X, formerly known as Twitter. And it uses the AI component to analyze the data to apply the score to these tokens to rank them based on how genuine they are. So we're incorporating that into the model. So like if a user wants to interact with or trade this certain pair, the gem scanner essentially, or the AI element, will basically assign a score to these tokens so that a user can actually have a confidence rating on how they want to trade, whether they want to execute or not. Now, from like the anti-rug mechanism that you mentioned earlier, the technology is not completely panned out yet, but what we plan on implementing is an anti-rug pool mechanism, which essentially monitors the liquidity pools for drains. And what that does is that, in the event that we notice, the bot notices that the liquidity pool is experiencing substantial drain, it will execute a sell order on your behalf immediately to prevent loss. So it kind of like mitigates that lossing component, so you can actually recover most of your funds, or if not a significant majority, before that pool goes to zero. So, not only are we checking that these coins that users are going to be trading with are legitimate, because I know there's a lot of market manipulation out there. Anyone can create a token or a pair and just slap it onto Uniswap and, really exploit users into getting access to their accounts, etc. There's a lot of things that they have to go in order that the bot makes sure of to ensure that these tokens that a user will actually potentially interact with are actually safe for traders to actually trade on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And, with the fact that you guys are bringing AI into this, Andrew, you kind of set me up for another great question. Is it's going to be more of a situational one. So you can just definitely keep that in mind when you're going through the answer. But I'll throw a situation at you, specific to the LP side of things. So, for example, there's a project. I'm not going to mention the name. We've been sporting them since last August. They recently released staking. Now the staking contract, unfortunately, seems to be, happening a lot, had an exploit. So
Right.
what happened was, sorry, I'm just getting over being a little bit sick over the last couple of weeks. What happened was they had an exploit. They ended up noticing it. The whales banded together, sent all their tokens and essentially taking back the LP, but based
Right.
on like what the bot may have notified, but like on the LP side, what happens if like you were holding that token since it launched? This occurs and it liquidates your position. Like that for me is one thing like I'm curious about, just like how intuitive AI is, in the sense that like if it's an actual rug or like an issue with liquidity, or it could be an exploit underway. Like again, you're kind of saving them, because if the whales didn't notice it and the exploit actually happened, very different outcome, right? So
Right.
it's
So
good in the
that's
sense of, yeah, so it's a weird situation, but I'm just trying to
it
figure out how
is.
the AI component comes into that specifically.
Right. I mean, we're talking about an exploit here for a staking contract. I mean, you know, that there's a combination of manual and automated efforts that go into making sure that, identifying you basically what you're asking is how will the bot be able to differentiate between certain scenarios, right? If we're using AI.
Exactly. Like if it's a traditional, rug pull, or if it's an example like this situation where people were, yes, there was something definitely happening weird on chain, but it was being done in the sense to try and save the bigger risk at play. So it's just like the identification factor. Either way, like your cell would, in a sense, keep them safe, but you may have
It
some
would.
people after the fact a little bit upset, right? That's kind of like the workaround I'm trying to get at.
Right. I mean, there's no best solution fits all. Like if the team notices it, or if anybody notices that there's an exploit happening, first of all, that's assuming an exploit does happen. And what the whales decide to do, or whoever has a large amount of token holdings decides to, pull from that pool. I mean, right now in the current stages that we're at, since we're very early, is, it will execute that trade to save the user, not knowing that, hey, this may have been just a contingency mechanism put into place to ensure that there's not that much damage that happens after this, since this exploit was noticed. So it's kind of a balancing act of figuring out, what's the best way to approach this. And this is very situational based, and it's kind of like it will be a difficult way for me to answer this, even because, I don't think we're at that stage yet right now with AI to be able to know what, the community decides to do, even though that there is a component that decides that we will implement that monitors social trends. I wouldn't be confident enough to say that we trust the bot to be able to, or trust AI, and for that fact, to be able to differentiate the type of drain that is occurring. Right now, in its early stages, at least as a product, I'm sure that'll change as the product evolves. In its earlier stages, yes, the anti-rug pull mechanism monitors liquidity pool drains. It'll prevent the users from losing all their funds. That's really what it is right now. But as we evolve over time and we continue to you know put more development effort into the actual AI component, that may be something that we can actually address. And these are very situational based circumstances. So that's kind of my take on it.
Love it. Great answer, honestly. Like, and again, I did want to throw it out there before, just let you know it is very much a, a situational occurrence. And, 95% of what we see in the space is obviously, what you guys are building, more than 95, probably 98% of what we see in the space is like what you guys are building it to protect from, right? Which is the traditional rug pull or drains that do happen with the LP on a number of tokens across, a lot of the times it's more memes, but it happens everywhere. So
Yeah, I mean, there
yeah,
is a community engagement component to the gem scanner. Like we're able to take the data sources to gauge market sentiment around that token. But however, if there's let's say an exploit or something like that, and then all of a sudden there's a massive drain, I don't think the bot will be able to put two and two together, especially such early on.
well, and I mean, plus, if you do have that, comment or chat section essentially where people could maybe, it plays into the sentiment side of things. If somebody were to go in there and say, hey, like in the early stages, because they're up to date and they're following it, make note maybe if somebody catches it and you guys were aware that it's not a traditional drain, it's kind of like a recovery method, then yeah, it would have to be some form of manual identification, I think, though,
It would be
and
because
input from the team. But it's good to know that you guys have those, I guess, point of point of interest or like point of sale type feedback channels where
yeah.
directly on what's being utilized by the end user, like they can interact and that message can be delivered to the team can see it, and changes could be implemented, or shifts could be made if need be. It's
Exactly.
really
And you
good
know
to
what?
have
When you
that two-line communication.
Yeah, and we're dealing with manual processes and you're dealing with input from the team, but it could be too late at that point. So you're taking an additional, you're just adding another layer of risk to that component. I think at the most, basic level, it would be important to like, hey, listen, we're noticing a significant drain in this pool. Okay, we may be aware of the exploit or whatever. Let's say it was an exploit, for example. However, the bot's still going to do its thing. Um, you know, Users may be a little bit upset about that, but they can always get back in if the team is very transparent and there's that dissent across the socials makes it very well known. However, like just, to combat those approaches, it's going to be a little bit challenging, like you said. So eventually we'll get there, I'm sure.
That's definitely exciting, and I know I kind of went into a specific topic, but it's some of those things that maybe make you guys a bit more unique or stand out from some of the competition. So it definitely will be, as you guys continue to grow and put focus on it could be a big differentiator for you guys compared to
Yeah.
some of the alternatives. So I really appreciate you going down that path with me there, Andrew. I did want to kind of get back to the more base level with the project, and I kind of
Right.
like when it's pre-sale. I kind of do go a little bit more towards the token off the
Yeah.
start. So I wanted to pull us back there and kind of, it's stage 10. You guys are almost nearing the end of that. What's the process been like so far? What's the feedback been from those that have bought in? I just wanted to get a little bit of insight for those that are newer to the project, what you guys have been seeing so far in the raise, feedback based, how many people are maybe signing up for some of the beta testing that you guys are rolling out from the earlier contributors, like that type of
Right.
discussion that I wanted to get into.
Yeah, so I mean, feedback within the community has been really great so far. I mean, we started our pre-sale on January 17th. We're already on stage 10. There's about 15 stages. Well, there are 15 stages total with an ending price of 0.02 cents in the last stage. Really, the reason we have these AMAs or we have these conversations is ideally what we want to do is we want to gather a sentiment from the community. Because this whole Solana decision that we decided to pursue wasn't really executed upon until we gathered sentiment from the community in the past based on other AMAs that we've held. We want to. What we're really trying to do is we want to get the community involved as much as possible because we're very strong supporters of building a project that really caters towards the needs of what people are actually looking for. And the journey for development, it takes time, obviously, to build out a product. They're releasing a demo video, and they will have beta testing, obviously, to ensure the stability and the integrity of their servers to make sure that trades are properly being executed and the UI is functioning as it should be. And that still hasn't been determined when that's going to be yet. These conversations are still happening internally, but so far it's been very positive from within the community. We've had a lot of great questions and a lot of some excellent feedback in general, which has kind of helped shape the narrative of how we want to build out this product. So, instead of going in a linear approach, pivoting with a certain degree based on community feedback is, I think, extremely important. And it's good to take in that insight and be able to actually execute that in a product that we're trying to deliver to the audience here.
Now, with some of the stages themselves, have you
Yeah.
guys been? Are there discounts? Each stage that gets hit is a slight, 2, 3. What type of rates are we looking at each stage versus the listing price? And I know you guys also currently during the pre-sale do have an allocation set aside for referral bonuses. So I do want to kind of have you break down exactly how that works, if it's determinate on contributions that come through based on referral links sent out, and how exactly that gets paid out towards the back end.
Yeah, so what we do is, there's no discounts or anything. The pre-sale is a pre-sale. Once a certain threshold is released, is reached, it moves on to the next stage. And it's very straightforward. You know, we don't offer these promotional discounts. We don't say, okay, as stage 12 comes along, you can buy in at a lower price. That pisses off a lot of people that got in earlier, and that is not an approach that we want to execute. We want to reward early adopters from the beginning, and we do not want to offer discounts as stages go down the line. It's like, hey, listen, you got in a couple months ago, you got in at that price. I'm not going to come out at stage 13 and say, hey, for a limited time only, you can purchase at the first, you know, at stage 1 prices. That just pisses everybody off. So none of that's happening. The only option we have right now is just a 5% referral bonus, and how that gets paid out is based on, you know, using your link and obviously tying your wallet address to it. Based on anyone that uses that link to purchase a token, that's all handled on the back end, and that gets paid out. That's going to be added to the actual user's overall purchase portfolio, and that's going to be part of their claims when they're able to see that once they can claim their tokens at the end of the stages. So that's as far as we're going with that. We do not want to like offer any other additional incentives really, because we do not want to give people a higher leg that enter later on in the pre-sale. It's not fair to early adopters, and I've seen it happen before, and I wasn't a fan of it myself personally. So you're at this stage, this is the price. You don't get in it, it's going to be at a higher price the next stage. It's that simple, straightforward, direct pre-sale.
It is a bit of the sliding scale in the sense of like earlier entry gets a little bit of a potential discount, but you guys aren't going to be pushing any, you know, mass like flash sales to try and get entry in later on for a discount.
No.
So it's kind of like, you know, the earlier.
That's not right. I just think the morality behind that is wrong. I don't think it's fair. You know, we have a certain threshold to reach. We're raising a certain amount. We're not trying to suck, you know, funds from the community just so we can get more tokens out there. We have a certain amount that we're going to allocate for the pre-sale, and we're not going to add more to that.
Now let's look at like the token launch itself. Like once the token is set to go live, I think, you know, based on how you guys have been building up the timing, and what your team member communicated, looking kind of towards a late Q2 launch. So maybe some point in May or early June is what I was kind of, you know, made aware of, just depending on how the pre-sale raises and everything with the rebrand continue to go. But what does the launch look like? So I want to get into more on the tokenomics discussion now, Andrew, with this question. So what are you guys doing on launch? Are you guys releasing the full amount of supply? Is there a certain amount that's going to be held back? The one thing I did notice is the LP is a little bit lower. So what is also the plans, you know, as you guys go live to strengthen and build up that 3% LP over time to make it a little bit more attractive for larger buyers and people to kind of come in? Because you know how that works. You typically start low, make it a little bit more attractive for entry, and then thicken it over time, at least with utility plays.
Right. So we're starting off with 3% liquidity upon launch. We have our own market makers and liquidity providers that also maintains price stability upon launch. You know, with regards to tokenomics in general, there are 300 million, about 30%. Well, exactly 30% dedicated for the pre-sale. Now, users are going to have the option to either immediately stake their tokens for a certain lockup period and earn interest on that way. The whole point of the token is, you know, to take advantage of the actual product itself. So with Bitbot, you know, there's revenue sharing that we have implemented into the protocol, which is a 50% revenue share based on the overall revenue the bot generates. And that's distributed based on the proportion of tokens that the user holds. Now, that's a utility component there. There's going to be a DAO element put into place so we can vote on, you know, structural changes and protocol design changes as we evolve and move on to next stages of development in the future. There's also going to be, you know, a few things that we offer as rewards to essentially our holders, like, you know, access to early use cases, you know, additional pre-sales that the project or the product team might actually execute in the future, you know, access to certain airdrops and rewards. So just a few things. Right now, with the state of DeFi, you know, it's a challenge to find token utility in general, rather than it just being a fan token. So, you know, just for holding a token, you know, you can passively earn just for, based on your ratio of holding, you can passively earn through the Bitbot product the amount of revenue generated on the actual platform itself. So, and it's up to 50%, and that's really what it is. So yeah, I mean, ensuring that we guarantee that other people get into the space as the product launches. We do have our own liquidity providers and market makers to maintain that stability as, the pool starts getting built out.
No, I appreciate that. It's just, I think for everybody, it's important to understand like the math and stuff behind a project to know why it can move as it does, and
Yes.
some of the impact price and buys have on it. So I appreciate you going into a little bit more detail on that. Now, yeah, one of the things I also mentioned was benefits, right? And one of my points in my intro was making sure we kind of go through and tie value or perks back from the Bitbot holders, or for the Bitbot holders. Sorry, Andrew. So I wanted to go a little bit into that discussion. So exactly, like, what does somebody receive within the the trading platform? Should they be holding Bitbot token versus if you're maybe going to enter in via a subscription model or more of the free to use? I know projects will also often have multiple kind of levels that people can gain entry through.
Right. So just for holding the token, like I said, the perk is you get revenue sharing. That gets paid out in Ethereum, and the timeline for how often that gets paid out is still being finalized. There's we certainly have a preliminary timeline on how often that gets paid out, but that's one thing. Yeah, perks and rewards. Eligibility for certain airdrops, etc. There's a lot of projects out there that, in the beginning stages of things that, users that have held, X token and have done certain trades on a certain platform, they're eligible for airdrop way down the line. Jupiter just did one recently, and I was interacting with that platform, for example, like over a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden an airdrop came out. I'm like, oh, great, this is amazing. So like those are the things. It's really rewarding the early adopters in early stages as the project evolves and pans out over time, because yes, it's always a challenge maintaining that momentum in the beginning. So, and ensuring that people believe in the project. So I think what ties into that is not just having a pre-sale and, hey, listen, the pre-sale's over, now the token is here, let's just sell everything. It's really just delivering on the product in general. So making sure that the product is ready to be used even before the pre-sale is over. That product should be live and ready to go right away. And that's what we're trying to do here. And we want to make sure that happens. And that's really what the development team is working on right now. So yeah, with regards to the tokens in general, it's not only do you have governance capabilities that will be panned out down the line, you have the staking option, you can earn interest on that, you have revenue sharing, and also you have the access to exclusivity, which is like perks features such as airdrops, rewards, or some few pre-sales that may come down the road.
Now, within the revenue share, I wanted to break down exactly where the fees or revenue is going to be generated from within the Bitbot ecosystem. Are you guys planning to monetize the bot via advertisements? That's kind of where I wanted to go a little bit next in terms of revenue generation.
It's going to be trading fees, really. Trading fees is where the revenue gets mostly generated. The more people that use the platform, the more trading that's done on the actual platform itself. Fees based on that are going to be generated, and that's going to be part of the revenue model for Bitbot and the Telegram trading bot in general.
Is volume dependent at all, or is it just usage based? So one use is X fee, or if you're using at a higher volume, you're going to have to pay a little bit of a higher fee as well.
It's usage based and obviously also network based. So if you're going to be for example, transacting on the Ethereum network, based on network congestion or whatever the rate is, there's going to be a small percentage of just using the platform, which is I think below 1% of a fee. That's just based on usage in general, really. And aside from just typical network transaction fees, the actual platform itself, I know there's other products out there that charge a small fee for every trade that they execute. Bitbot will be doing the same, but at a much reduced scale, because we're really trying to take advantage of taking on that user base. So that percentage right there as volume from different users execute trades is going to accrue over time, and that's going to be distributed out to basically token holders based on, obviously, like I said before, the amount that they hold proportional.
Perfect. And now, do you guys plan on building in your own or having an aggregator for gas, at some point in the tools life cycle so that people are able to optimize their fees
Yes.
when they're paying? Okay, cool.
Yes,
That's
that
definitely
is, yeah.
something that.
So there are a lot of parameters that you'll be able to set. I'm not exactly sure yet what will those will be, but these are all different things that you can set to customize your trading. And that's really what we wanted to do. And that's kind of like more of the advanced side of things. So the aggregate for gas customization, et cetera, or optimizing fees, that's definitely going to be put into the product as well.
Yeah, no, that will definitely help. Because the less you or the more you can do to kind of keep people within one place. Like if, for example, they were still able to see a bit of a lower fee with another provider, although like there's benefits to using your tool, it's definitely going to help you or hurt you guys a little bit when it comes to like the
Yeah,
adoption and user growth. So yeah, being able to have those features built in over time is definitely a good thing for kind of just like centralizing your community's usage, right?
exactly.
So
Correct.
less points for drop off. Yeah, keep more people in the pipeline. That's smart. Now,
Definitely.
I do want to talk about the actual scaling and the release kind of timelines. I don't need specific or hard dates, but kind of like what the product, like the bot and everything's going to look like in terms of where it's going to be for launch, and then like what the growth or the addition of those features is going to look like over time.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, towards the end of the pre-sale, I mean, based on the current trajectory of the pre-sale, first 10 stages and how long that took, we can anticipate when the last remaining 5 stages will end. And we ballparked it around Q2 2024, and so the product will be ready to be launched by then. It should be ready prior to the end of the pre-sale. That deliverable needs to be there for the community to see that this is a tangible product that we actually pushed out for use. So that's going to be the initial stage. It's going to have the features that we talked about earlier. From the AI side of things, it will still be a little bit more basic. There are going to be, it's going to have the Gem scanner. It's going to have the natural language where you can interact with it and execute trades directly just by asking it to do such a thing. It'll be your basically trading assistant bot. And as we evolve over time, we're going to add additional features that kind of create a more robust experience, more or less, like additional features for trading, for example, like if there's other exchanges or there's other processes that users want to see down the line that they could set custom limits on. That's definitely something that we plan on implementing as we evolve as a product. That's why there's the DAO governance model that we want to implement as well to get that kind of feedback. And then later on, we want to have our own independent app that's kind of like not on Telegram itself. It'll be its own trading bot. And that's really the ultimate goal, is to have a native app that is powered independently from Telegram and essentially allows users to use that instead of, having to interact with another third party.
Yeah, I guess like another question, we haven't really gone into it, but like why the team chose, Telegram for their hub or like their home to build out and release the bot. And it's more of like, I guess, a perception question to the
It's
outsiders, because I get it as somebody who spends a lot of time in Telegram.
yes,
But
yes.
if you follow a couple of the videos that Caesar even put out recently, it talks about he went into a space, somebody invited him to a space. And then, like, when he comes up on mic, they talk about how, oh, if you see somebody's from Telegram, that's like a red flag for them. And Telegram's scammy and Telegram's this. And I'm like,
Telegram is and can be very scammy.
but
Yes,
it
but
also, in my opinion, is like such a good source of information. And there's so much knowledge here if you actually are willing to look and just spend some time
right,
talking to people. So, like,
exactly.
yeah, I wanted to kind of go like, yeah, just open mic it a little bit, but more give you a context from where I was coming from, because I hate hearing from those crypto Twitter guys who I see promote, draining scams and rug pulls all the time with no research, that Telegram is, you know, scammy. I'm like, well,
Yeah, but the
yeah, it
same
can
thing
be, but
happens on
anywhere can be.
yeah, the same thing happens on Twitter. Like the same thing happens on all these other platforms. I mean, it's really just where you as a user are more present, So if you're on Telegram a lot, you'll see that happen more frequently. If you're on Twitter constantly, you'll be seeing that happen. So it's like really where you are. And I'm taking it from your side of things. You're on Telegram a lot. Me personally, I am on Telegram all the time. And there's a huge communities on Telegram. There's a lot of followings on different channels and groups as well. And, launching on there, it's really like the crypto communication platform, aside from Twitter. You can actually have groups, conversations, you can have sessions like this. You can also do it on Twitter. However, they have a whole user interface, Telegram, that we can actually build a product and launch V1 on. And that's why we decided to choose there. Because like, how can we capture an audience more specifically geared towards what we're trying to develop without going through another source that, is not as prevalent? So Telegram was the primary decision for that reason in general.
I love it, and I agree. It's definitely more active on the trading side. I feel like the back and forth communication, it's so much easier. Like jumping into somebody's DMs on Twitter if you're not verified or following, it's you can't do it, right? But if you see somebody in a Telegram group with you who makes a really good point or has some really interesting knowledge, it seems like a lot of people in this space, if it comes from the right place, are often, if they know you're in a group with them, holding a token with them, they're fairly open to chatting and sharing that advice. So
sure. Yeah, you also got to watch out. Also, there's a lot of people that'll DM you on Telegram, advertising X, Y, and Z, promoting whatever it may be. And it's just like, okay, like you, as a constant Telegram user, you know what to look out for. But someone who's kind of like new to the space, you got to be careful. I tell this to everybody. It's like, okay, if you're hopping onto a platform and there's just so much information out there, you don't know who to trust. You have impersonators, you have scammers. Make sure you always dial it back down by going to the original source of what project it is that you want to learn more about, joining that group chat, and just reading up and brushing up on the conversation streams there, so you have an idea of what to look out for and what not to look out for. In the event someone says, hey, this is a platform for X, Y, whatever, you can verify that directly through the original group. And yeah, Telegram can be very scammy at times. So can Twitter, and so can everything else, really. So it's just making sure that you're a little bit more knowledgeable, especially when entering that space.
Not full, like kind of unrelated, but not fully unrelated. Just anybody should know, or everybody should know that's listening or listens back. Like we do have a private group, but Caesar will not DM you to try and get entries. So there is like fake Caesars going around trying to trick people into like paying. I think it's like $285 for a yearly entry into a fake private group. Don't fall for that. I always say, like, Caesar's pretty busy doing other stuff. He's not going to be DMing random people to try and get a little bit of money out of them for private entry fees. So just like keep that in mind. I had to get 3 people saved over the weekend. But yeah, no. For me,
same thing happened with our group as well. Bitbot, like I saw 2 scam Telegram groups. I don't know. They're just migrating user data and adding you to these groups, and then all this fake promotionals.
One thing while we're on this, for anybody who's in Bitbot, anybody who's in Caesars, more so it's like anybody who's new to Telegram, because like our community has been around for a while has heard me say this number of times. But go into your settings on Telegram, go into your privacy settings, and make it so only your contacts or nobody, however you want it. I have nobody, and then have specific people allowed to add me into groups. Just that's the easiest change you can honestly make on Telegram, because I know so many people will join in, and if you're not in 100 groups already, you do sometimes notice if you get added into new groups, and then you may click on something and you may accidentally get hurt. So I'll say, anybody in Caesars, anybody in Bitbot who's listening, turn off your privacy settings where anybody could allow you to be added into a group, and make it
or send you a message.
Direct message you, and then you can verify who they are properly before you go through and click on anything. So yeah, keep yourself safe. Everybody just who's listening in, that's probably the first thing you should change when you get onto Telegram, outside of maybe your name and your picture.
Yeah, you'll just get bombarded from all these random users. It's terrible.
No, it is, and we're always trying to make sure people are safe here. Not only from our community, but from any communities that are coming by. And it's really cool, because that's the nice thing about Telegram, or what I get to do is we have a community, and oftentimes our community members are new to some of the projects that come by, but sometimes the projects do a great job of onboarding newer people into crypto, and when they come across our channel, maybe some of the information or knowledge that I can share from my time in the space, I do want to try and make sure I always hit on some of those safety features, because you never know who may be listening in from the project side as well.
Yeah, it's important. I think it's super important.
I do want to keep it, very much back to Bitbot and on brand for what you guys are doing there. So you guys mentioned a few of the ways in which you're competitive or people can, benefits from the speed. I want to talk about the private node aspect and the fact that it's how is it stated in your white paper? I think it's trade in private, win in public. I think that's the way you guys have kind of, worded
Yeah,
it.
so it's through NightSafe, and that also ties into the non-custodial component. So we don't have an infrastructure ourselves. We're using our integration with NightSafe to have access to that infrastructure, and they're the ones that have the security parameters set up as well as the blockchain distribution network. So all trades are going to be propagated through them, and their success rate is relatively good compared to others. Now, and also there's a huge cost associated with setting up a blockchain distribution network, getting validators on board, setting up nodes, building that ecosystem out. And who knows, we might ultimately transition to that down the road based on the amount of users that we have and the demand for the product, in the event that, we have such a high user base and, this integration with NightSafe doesn't pan out to be able to support that kind of demand, we're going to have to transition into being able to set up our own infrastructure, which is something that we are taking into account. However, since we're so early, like we're still in our pre-sale stage, we haven't, gathered any data yet on user base. It would be kind of difficult to make that call and anticipate when that call would be, more relevant down the line.
And a question that I was really curious about is because it's all kind of set up via that methodology, it is like with some of these other tools, when you talk about sniping, you really get into the concept of like bribing and block entry. So like because of the way it's set up on the back end internally here at Bitbot, like how does bribing for earlier block entry and that type of thing work? Is that something that is or wouldn't even maybe become an issue and everybody kind of has the same potential entry? It becomes based on maybe slippage or whatnot. I'm just trying to figure
it's
out
going to be
how it's
that really.
competitive.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to be that. Yeah, because we want to make sure that everyone has equal opportunities here. And the certain parameters that we're going to set are obviously going to evolve over time. When you talk about bribing, et cetera, and then comparing that to slippage and giving equal opportunities to individual traders, more or less that's really what the case is going to be like. We don't, we really want to see how the community responds to the performance of the bot itself. If they're not securing trades or if they're not getting, if it's not meeting the demands that they're expecting it to meet, then obviously there's going to have to be some kind of change, right? So that's why, not even after this pre-sale is over and the product is live, there's going to be continuous AMAs. There's going to be constant, feedback from the community as well as, the implementation of a DAO. So, that's the whole point. We encourage that so we can make those changes because it's not about building a product and delivering it once and for all. It's about, evolving to the market sentiment and staying relevant and up to date.
And you mentioned the addition, I think the pivot or the choice to go down the path of Solana based on some community feedback. So like how flexible or how easy is it to integrate other, network APIs or L2s? Because there was some, mention of, few networks because, ones like Base and stuff that seem to pick up these volume. Now, Base is a little bit, from my opinion, I don't understand it as well compared to others because there is that tie-in because it's centralized in a sense.
Right.
So for me, that's a bit of a trickier one when you talk about integration, because I do feel there's a little bit more that has to be done on the back end to make it work. But
Right.
what do you guys do when, for example, a new L2 pops up, the volume is there, it seems to sustain for about a month. How do you go about integrating that in? Is it done on a monthly vote within the DAO? Kind of just, again,
That's all TBD. Yeah, that's all to be determined. But we do plan on integrating Smart Chain, Arbitrum. What really is the main chains that have been out for quite some time and have demonstrated significant success and traction with user base and volume over the course of the last several years. I'm assuming when a new chain comes out or new L2 comes out, people are all hyped about it. But you got to be very careful with those things, because anything can happen. They haven't gone through the grind yet. They haven't gone through let's take a look at, for example, Solana, right? When they first launched, I think it was like a trillion exploits that they had because they're compromising security for speed. Now they came out with DeFi 2.0, and we're seeing a lot better resilience within the Solana ecosystem. Granted, network congestion is a tad high. However, they've had to go through the works before they built a more robust ecosystem. So like making that decision to implement another chain has to come from, okay, how well is this chain robustly designed, and how well has it maintained its loops and bounds through those bad actors, because we don't want to be part of something, or we don't want to integrate something just to yes, we want to maintain relevancy, but we don't want to open ourselves to the potential barrier of experiencing additional complications when it comes to certain exploits that may or may not happen.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, like it's definitely, it's tough, right? And there needs to be not only like the volume on the chain set, but there needs to be like the demand internally from like the
Yes.
user base you guys have built up, because integrating and testing those like the back and forth it's not easy, right? So
it's not easy. No, there's a whole network that you have to target. There's a whole infrastructure that goes into play here. Like you can't just say, hey, we're supporting this new network right now without the actual support and bandwidth for it. So it's not just an overnight change. It's a developmental progress.
when you guys are going about the process of like a DAO vote, and you've alluded to a couple times throughout the AMA. So I just wanted to figure out how it's going to be handled. Do you need to be a holder to participate? Is it
Yes.
going to be, are you guys going to incorporate a staking model for the sole purpose of the DAO voting? I know a lot of the times it's like stake to vote in some of these ecosystems. Just figuring out what everything's going to look like on the DAO.
Right. Though I don't have definite answer on that yet. Like I said, we're super early. So that decision on how we want to proceed is still being it's still in the works. It's still being discussed on how we want to actually execute that. Right now, the team is really focused on making sure that the product's functioning and ready to deliver in the correct timeline that we have promised. However, with regards to how we want to build out our DAO model, those are viable options. We haven't made a determination on that yet, so I really can't give you any kind of insight on what that's going to look like. But I'm sure if we hop on a call in a few months from now, I'll have a way better answer for you.
Yeah, again, it's definitely tough. Like I know sometimes my questions are a lot more future focused, but I'm definitely always looking at kind of what's coming and the thought process behind it. So yeah, we'll definitely jump on. We'll have to keep in touch going forward. And as you guys drop, updates and things that you think the communities that you guys have interacted with in the past want to know, definitely be sure to hit me up or have your team members hit me up just in DMs with, the material on Twitter, and, we can always get some extra eyes and share with our community and stuff. So from there, what are you doing now within the actual ecosystem of the trading platform from like I guess a leaderboard standpoint, more of a dashboard? So like a couple different components. So top traders, maybe top losers. There's a couple.
Oh, like you're saying, like copy trading, copy selling.
Because I know you guys are doing copy trading as one of your features. So like, how are you guys going to kind of track top wallets and then some other things that you guys would be able to look at?
Yeah, that comes with our AI, our gem scanner, really. Not just, I know we use the word gem scanner, but it just does more than just tokens. It does wallets and stuff like that as well. So on-chain analytics, based on who's interacting on our platform, we'll be able to identify a leaderboard of who's, I don't know about top losers. I don't want to put people on, I don't know if we're going to put people on. We may, I don't know, but it's definitely going to be those that are going to be high performing, and those are going to have the option to actually follow them as well. So copy trade, copy sell, as I think you guys are familiar with, if you guys have ever used a trading bot before. That's kind of what we're looking at and what we're alluding to right now. how we plan about, producing that, roster is really going to come down to the AI component and, the analytics of, you know, trades that are executed within a given time frame. I'm not sure what the timeline is for that. Like, how are we going to be like, okay, is it top gainer, top loser within 24 hours, or for the past week? What are these leaderboards going to look like? That's still all like in the air of discussion, but that's definitely in, the pipeline.
Yeah, because that stuff's definitely kind of adds specific elements in terms of
Right.
like just makes it more user friendly. Now, are you guys also going to add features in for like each individual to like track performance on what they're trading, kind of P&L, more personal stats, like data that they can use to tailor their approach, see how well they're doing, where they need to make improvements.
That's a good suggestion. That I'm not sure of, but that's something that, that's the reason we have these conversations, so I can relay these conversations back to the team as well. But yeah, that'd be definitely a great idea, actually. Because it'd be great to see how you're performing in the space. Okay, this is what you're doing. This is what you should be doing. That's the whole AI component is like, okay, analyzing your past activity, it's suggesting to, okay, trade, on something that's a bit more stable and hasn't had much volatility, based on your current track record or your past track record, whatever that may be. But, that all comes down to being able to, like, for example, like P&L you mentioned, that comes out to like how robust we want to create this system. And I'm sure that's going to be an implementation feature that's going to come down the road, but I don't see why not,
Like this portfolio, I would say those things are very much like portfolio management tools that not necessarily going to be utilized to trade, but really for those that are cognizant in performance and are in this
Right.
to do well and improve. Like those are features that they're going to want to see. And as you
For
guys
sure.
build that out, and enhance the experience for them, it's just going to, likely add their connection, their experience level, kind of keep them within the application more.
For sure.
Word of mouth will start to spread, and then that's where like you guys will really get holders who believe in your product. And
Yeah, that's great. No, that I totally support that. Um, yeah, and these are all things that happen down the road, right? So there's a lot of things that need to happen with a short time frame, just V1 launch and adding all these features and having these conversations, just to gain insight from you and, other community members as well is super important because, the more people that have these questions, the more, you know, challenge the project, have these critical discussions. I think it's super important to how the product evolves over time. And yeah.
I don't know. So from a, I guess, future like marketing community engagement standpoint, like what's the plan between now and like launch? Because I know there's still, there's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, a few stages left. I mean, typically projects will take a little bit of a buffer after going through a pre-sale for a few months and,
Well, we don't plan on really doing that. We want to kind of
oh,
stay
it's
active in
just
the
keep
space.
pushing the
Um,
momentum.
yeah, I mean, listen, it's all about delivery, right? Once you get the users, you want to get new users and you want to maintain that user base. You don't want to like kind of go dark after a few months of launch. So it's going to be continuous with these AMAs. Maybe get ourselves, in real life spaces such as events, have some panel discussions there, go to some of the major blockchain events, et cetera. So right now, we're starting from like a more basic approach, articles, social publications, paid ads, whatever it may be, but getting IRL events like going as well and making sure that, we have discussions like these where we join certain spaces, not just specifically on Telegram, but on Twitter and other platforms are definitely within the pipeline. It's not about, okay, pre-sale's over, now we're going to go dark. It's just we kind of want to act like nothing's really changed, more or less. Okay, like, well, what do you guys think about the product? I've noticed this about the product. What do you have to say to that? And do you guys plan on doing X, Y, and Z? And that's really important. Before especially the DAOs rolled out and all that stuff. That's really the plan.
Okay, and you mentioned the rebrand earlier. I was going to jump into a question specific to it, but we kind of went down a different path. So I did want to circle back. Is it
Yeah.
just more so like rebrand and like a revamp of the website, or are you
Yeah.
guys kind of changing? Okay, so it's just more so on like the back end side, like
Yeah.
the
What we really, right. Yeah. Initially, we kind of went for this like old school like gaming look. And now like, after like, getting kind of like some feedback from the community and, having internal discussions, we're like, okay, we're trying to create like an institutional product here that has all these robust, security mechanisms as well as applications for certain, varying expertise of traders. We're gonna redesign how we want to really push out our imaging to match more of to be more consistent and in line with the actual product itself. So more of an institutional look, more of like a professional kind of feel to it. And you guys will see that relatively soon. And I looked at the designs myself. So it should be up and running sometime this week, if anything. At least that's what I was told, It's really about how quickly they're able to push that out.
on the concept of that. Like, how do you guys maybe plan to, like, you mentioned, like, how do you guys plan to maybe bring in different thought leaders or industry leaders, and from an education standpoint, maybe help out or run little seminars, um, training, like seminars and stuff like that with different people across, maybe leverage trading, or how to identify like like new live pairs, like what to look for on a new live pair. Like, how do you guys build up your kind of your brand and your reputation within like that area of DeFi, being more of a thought leader, or at least having networks and connections of thought leader, where when people look at Bitbot and what you're trying to do from a trading standpoint, you could be like, oh yeah, those guys really know their shit. Or like
Yeah.
those guys, like, those guys really are on it, because that's what you want to kind of hear as a trader about a trading platform or tool.
Right. And that really comes down to adoption, right? Like the overall sentiment on the product itself. Okay, we have good traction here, we have good momentum. It's all about noise and being able to like actually, make a presence in this space. And there's a lot of conversations that we have with individuals that are outside the team, making sure that those partnerships, whether it's from an advisory standpoint or educational or just, product integration standpoint, can give us the opportunity to put ourselves in a position where we can provide that kind of service or provide that kind of opportunity to users. And that's really the ultimate plan. It's about building a network of supportive individuals or organizations that kind of or they advance the credibility of not only your product but also theirs as well. So it's like a win-win scenario here, and that comes down within time. And it's hard to say exactly how you're going to do such a thing, but the plan of doing such really comes down to being very transparent and being able to actually promise on the deliverables and gain that traction and maintain that traction and retention as the product evolves. And they will see that, and everyone will see that, and they'll kind of create more credibility in the space and encourage things like that to happen.
Yeah, I'm just going to run through a couple community questions here. One
Sure.
second. The first one actually was a bit of a spin on something we talked about earlier, and it was a great catch by Day. Day's question here, her name's Diane Gelos. I saw that you guys have built into your product an anti-rug algorithm that in the event of a liquidity sell, you guys essentially sells automatically. You touched on this a bit earlier on with Maurice, and Maurice had asked a specific question about how it gets triggered or any differentiation. My question though is, can the algorithm detect not a liquidity sell or maybe a developer sell, but a large wallet sell that triggers enough of a price impact to hurt, and that would qualify as an automatic sell? Like, yeah, so like
I understand
it's not
I
anything to
understand
do
what
with the
she's asking.
LP, but if like,
Yeah.
there's a sell that comes out 30% price impact, like, can her bag just automatically get sold, so at least she mitigates or maximizes what she does have in profits?
So if we're looking at it, that's another situational base level. So she's basically asking if a wallet holder that holds a large amount of stake in tokens decides to dump it all or sell it all, and it has such a massive price impact, that I believe will also trigger a sale, because you're looking at a massive price differentiation. And what that does is that, that's going to alert, the AI essentially that there's drain. But, in general, when that happens and you see a 30, for example, if we're doing 30% here and you see that happening in general, whoever it may be, whether it's from an LP or a developer or just a random wallet that does it, you're going to get following from traders to follow suit. And that's going to automatically trigger a sale. So there's that FUD factor that plays into it. And, people are going to see, oh, God, this thing has dropped by 30%. Everyone, we got to sell, sell, sell. So the traders are going to react to that. So one person doing it is always going to have a domino effect. I don't see how one person doing that and it's going to recover in the short term. I feel like there's going to be an additional dip because of the overall sentiment that, oh, we're seeing a plummet here and we must respond. So that's when the algorithm will execute that sell. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah. Now, does it take into my question, or my follow-up to that would be, sorry if you have any background noise, I just took my dog out to the balcony. But would be, does it factor in time or livelihood, length of a contract being on the blockchain? Because, for example, if you get in pretty early into a token and then it sees like a 60% dip, sometimes they even go as much as 80% off that initial pullback. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
It's going to hurt your bag in the short term, but a lot of the times that's like those people who just sniped it or got super early entry exiting, and because of the time that they got in and the grouping of the price impacts, it really creates a large red candle.
Well, you can
yeah, just trying to figure out how it factors in time.
That's really can set that yourself. If you like I said, it does. There's going to be a component that scans these tokens, right, to make sure that they're genuine and authentic. All right, there's a few sources that are used to make sure that tokens listed are, valid in the ecosystem. And I know that new listed tokens experience massive volatility. So to prevent the actual bot from selling on your behalf on certain tokens that are just new in the space, that will be a feature that you can set as a user, saying, okay, automated tools or automated trading tools can be disabled for this specific token trade pair, to prevent things like that from happening. However, you can re-enable them at any time. So this is what I was talking about earlier when we said you can set certain parameters and certain features for your trading profile and how you want to execute trades and like what kind of limitations you want to give the bot. That's what I'm talking about. You can do that in that case specifically if that's something you want to avoid. Okay, so I think that better answers that question.
Another really good discussion point, if you wouldn't mind, Andrew, just maybe going through some of the other customization features or settings that somebody would be able to kind of list or set up from their side. Maybe it would be a good area to touch on before we transition to the next.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be on certain types of tokens with regards to trading activity volume. You could set limitations on how much you want to actually trade, like, this is how much I authorize the bot to trade on my behalf. So spending limits. There's also thresholds you can set, limits, stop limits, buy limits, whatever. Those things that are typically found in centralized exchanges. Those are like one of the other metrics that you said. Also security measures, not like security, but more like threshold measures that you can customize. Okay, at this point, for example, if this threshold is released, I want the bot to do this, or completely disable some automated trading features so you can have manual control and have the bot, kind of just execute the trade on your manual input. So it depends on how interactive you are as a user. You can set those kind of limitations. If you're more of a passive trader, you can have the bot just automatically say, this is how much I want to use, this is how much I'm authorizing you to use, have at it, and let the bot just automatically deal with it for you. So it really comes down to how engaged you want to be as a user. And I'll have more information on the exact features or like a list out of them as we like pan out the project.
Awesome. So we'll get back into our next question here. So this one's from Justin Stick Crypto. As you guys grow your platform, how do you plan to scale the need for additional bandwidth, and then integrate in customer support for, live feedback and help as new users are being onboarded into the ecosystem.
Right. And this kind of comes back into the last the topic that we were speaking about earlier. So integrating more bandwidth really comes down to whether we want to do that from an internal standpoint or integrate with a partnership arrangement where we utilize their infrastructure to do such, making sure that we adopt enough bandwidth that we can support the needs of current users is extremely important. And the plans for doing such will be panned out as we evolve over time. In terms of customer support, there will be an element that is actually already in discussion. So I'm surprised I didn't mention that earlier. There will be an option for customer support to help users navigate, certain elements of the bot that they may have difficulty with, and that should be available. And that's something that's currently in discussion right now. Right now, these are a lot of future-based questions, and it's kind of hard for me to give you guys a concrete answer on them. Besides saying that, a team is talking about it. We're it's still being panned out, but it's a lot of focus is really making sure, like I said earlier, and I'm going to repeat myself, I'm sorry, V1 launch is ready prior to the end of stage 15 of the pre-sale.
That sounds good. Now, two questions kind of, now this could be touched on here. These are a bit more present focused.
Yeah.
Based on your current interactions and your current community that you've built out there at Bitbot, what are some of their biggest feedbacks? Like, what are some of the big features that maybe you guys hadn't built out or incorporated into your tools when you first introduced this that are now currently going to be rolled out in the future or maybe already available? So they're kind of asking how you've taken that community feedback and implemented or will implement in the future.
It was the decision to launch on Solana, and that was really the biggest thing that we were pushing for and wanted to get sentiment from the community. In the beginning, it was really more like introductory conversations on these AMAs. The community was just, really positive about it. They're excited about the project. They're excited about what we have to offer. And, we kind of wanted to prompt users or community members as to what they would think about certain implementations. So we started off as a test with Solana, and we got positive feedback on that side of things. So we decided to incorporate that into our developmental structure. And that's an example of that right there.
Awesome. Now, this question's here from Anderson. Now, he wanted to learn a little bit more. He read that people will be, once the bot's scaled out, people will be able to, or projects will be able to sell ad space or acquire ad space within the bot. He's curious, just because of the fact that it's going to be advertised and there's going to be monetization occurs, it puts a little bit more responsibility and onus on a team, just ensuring like the project's safe. It's different if somebody's just using your tool to trade any pair, any token that's out there. But when it gets advertised through the Bitbot name on the product, he's just wanting to know what goes into the vetting and what's essentially part of that process. I'll give an example of why this is important. I think it's no longer around, but there was a bot out there maybe a year ago that was actually allowing the fake Caesars Telegram channel to advertise and promote itself. I know because I went into a community and a buy bot came up and it said Caesars calls, and I'm like, oh shit, Caesars doing some advertising? That's cool. Nope, fake channel. So like that.
I don't think we're doing that.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any internal I'm not really aware of any advertising on the bot's behalf. Yeah, because that wasn't a conversation that I've had at all with the team. It really comes down to analyzing market trends and not really promoting itself on Telegram or any of that stuff. So I don't think that applies to us.
Okay. There may just been maybe a misinterpretation of something on the website. So
yeah, I'm trying to find out. Yeah.
For some clarification, but just again, don't want to waste live time on the air because I know you mentioned you have another call. So Crypto Koi here was just curious. It states that participants of the presale may qualify to receive a Genesis NFT. He was hoping to have a little bit more information on what that would entail. Is a utility that's kind of linked to this NFT. I'm just hoping for a bit of a breakdown on that.
Yeah, so we're talking about perks here, right? So right now, from my understanding, there's an airdrop. That's the first thing that we're focusing on internally. With regards to NFTs or anything like that, that hasn't been fully panned out yet. But I'm sure that these are things that we're going to implement down the road to reward early adopters of the platform, and how that's going to be broken down in the process of doing such will be delivered to the community as we decide this is the exact path that we're going to be going down. So the first step is really just, there's a few steps that you have to do. They're kind of like merit-based reward system for airdrop eligibility. And that's really what we're focusing on right now. So, to encourage additional adoption or to reward early adopters, for example, like a Genesis NFT and what the utility of that will be, will obviously be delivered to the community once we fully pan out that discussion.
So, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, Koi, thanks for that question. Let me see if there's maybe, I'm assuming maybe have to bounce for around 3:30. So let's see if I can get one more in here and then still have some time for closing statements and kind of like that final call to action. It keeps it around nice 80, 85 minutes there for the AMA. And then just for, for your kind of reference, our AMAs, once they get finished, I send them all over to our video specialist here, and he kind of goes through the chapter logs and then uploads them to our YouTube. So that
Awesome.
typically gets uploaded within a day or two. So once it's live, I'll
great.
make sure to send that over to your counterparts so that you guys can publish that. But yeah, let me see here. Mac Daddy's question, Big Mac is his username. You guys mentioned that trading fees is going to be the primary source of revenue generation for the ecosystem. As Maurice said, sometimes volume or fees are a little bit more difficult to predict and promote during flat times, or even more recently, like what we saw on Solana, those issues with network congestion. Do you guys have a plan to incorporate any non-volume based revenue generation in the future? And again, sorry, it's another feature-based question, but it is a good one for volume.
It is a good one.
Volume is a bit fluctuating, so
it is, and that's a very good question. And yes, we do. Right now, like what I can tell you is what we're going to do right now, and then what we plan on doing in the future is all up in the air for discussion, and that's going to be delivered out to the community once we made that decision. But yes, I mean, these different sources of revenue and how we're going to plan on implementing that into our protocol is going to evolve over time, and it really comes down to like, okay, where are we seeing the bottlenecks here, and where are we seeing the actual issues with regards to, like we said, volume congestion, network congestion on Solana, and how can we counteract that if we're experiencing some kind of problems internally. So there's a few ideas that are on the table of how we want to do that. I'm not going to say them right now because I don't want to kind of like allude to give anyone the wrong idea of how we might implement those strategies, but that is still on the table. So starting like immediately right now, that's what we're going to be doing. What I mentioned earlier with regards to trading fees, etc. But in addition to that, there's going to be other sources or avenues for generating revenue internally aside from just this one direct linear approach.
Love it. And yeah, great question from you there, Big Mac. Appreciate you always being active. You've had some really good ones last couple of weeks, so appreciate that. Yeah, no, from me, again, I know some of the questions, and I apologize, even myself, some of the stuff that I focused on or even kind of thought, where my head went in terms of, future use case and stuff is a bit more future focused. But again, with any utility project, and it seems like you guys have been around and been building this for a while. I mean, presale's been live for almost 4 months, so it's definitely not been a short period of time. So again, really, yeah, want to definitely focus on kind of what's to come, but I really appreciate you also providing us some great context in terms of where you guys are at right now, what's available, how people can get involved in the community, some of the ways that you guys have already incorporated, community feedback in. Excited to see what the new website looks like as you go live with that. Do be sure once it goes live, just drop it over to me, or have your counterpart do that. Just so I could update our post with the new website too, just so that even from our end, anything that we put out is still going to direct people, even if they go back in a couple of weeks from now to the updated website from your end. That's a big thing for me. It's just making
Should
sure
be
all the
under the
information.
same. Should be
Oh,
under the
it'll be
same domain. Yeah,
same
I don't
domain,
think they're
just
gonna. It's
updated.
just a yeah.
Cool. All right. So,
Yeah.
so there's no need, but we could always, once it's live, I'll keep
I'll
in
shoot
touch
you,
with
man.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we can kind of update on Twitter just so people check that out. And
for
then
sure.
I'd also mention, I think you're going to be jumping in with us this Thursday. I know I'd mentioned to your team member when we had a quick call Friday. We have a utility focused space that goes live every Thursday. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern. So I did mention to him, if you guys were interested, happy to have you in for a spot this week. It's a little bit shorter, obviously, from your end. It's about 5 to 10 minute spots per project. Just introduce what you guys are building,
Yeah.
where you're at in the stage, and then kind of a couple questions back from what is a keynote panel of about 6 different KOLs or influencers around the space. So if you're interested, I'll see you Thursday, but I'll give you the mic for kind of closing statements, final calls to action, and just one final thank you from me. Great job on your responses. Like the concept, and I'm definitely curious to see what that launch looks like come later in Q2.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure speaking with you. I always enjoy these kind of conversations. And for those of you who are listening, always feel free to check out our website, bitbot.tg, and participate in the free pre-sale. We're at stage 10 right now, only 5 more to go. That's really the only call to action. You can follow us on Twitter, join our Telegram community directly from the website if you want links on those. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day. It was a great time talking, Maurice.
As well. And again, I'll send it over to the team once the YouTube video gets uploaded, but the raw footage of the AMA will be sent over to them, within the next 5-10 minutes. I'm sure anybody who missed it, maybe wants a bit of clarification. If you joined late, the full AMA is recorded and it will be sent over, and I'm assuming pinned up within the Bitbot Telegram community. So you should be jumping in there to keep up to date on what's happening if you enjoyed the presentation and what they're building up. And from me, hopefully see you on Thursday. I'll be sure to share that Twitter Spaces link with your team once it's available. Typically comes out Tuesday or Wednesday. All right, Andrew?
Sounds great, Maurice. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful day.
Well, great speaker, you as well. Good luck on your next call, and I appreciate the extra time today. I know these are always scheduled for an hour. Anytime somebody stays late, I'm always appreciative of them, spending time to answer questions for our community.
Of course. Thank you.